Rich, stand by. We're going to go to Alice Gaino, who is seeing this trial from start to finish. She joins us from outside federal court right now. Alice, what are your impressions having been through this trial?
Well, first of all, this is a really, really long day. We started at 10 a.m. We took a 1-hour break for lunch. And then, as you know, we just wrapped up a short time ago. Court did adjourn. I was talking to a few members of the press in the press room to see, is this the longest sentencing you've ever attended? There was a recent financial crime sentencing that lasted a couple of days because a lot of victims spoke. What's interesting here is none of the victims spoke at court today. However, there were letters they submitted, those impact letters, and the judge directly quoted Cassie Ventura's letter multiple times, including references to her going to dark places, to her having thoughts of suicide because she was so hurt, so traumatized by everything she went through. And I thought it was interesting. The judge had a message for just about everyone involved in the case. You know, he told Sean Diddy Combs, he told him, I know you're in a dark place right now, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. You have a lot of people who love you, want to see you succeed. He referenced the letters his children wrote him, his children spoke in court. The judge also referenced the women. Jean, that's one of his former girlfriends who testified under a pseudonym. He referenced Cassie Ventura, and he said, quote, we heard you. He said this was so important because they showed other women, other victims around the world that they're not powerless, that they can hold people to account. And he also pointed out that what the prosecution wanted in terms of 135 months, he thought that was too much. He thought what the defense wanted, which was 14 months, that was not sufficient to satisfy what he needed to determine for sentencing, for deterrence, respect for the law, all those sorts of things. So the judge came up with 50 months. As we know, he's already been incarcerated for just over a year. That will be factored in. He was also sentenced to 5 years post-release supervision. Behind me, you could see the massive crowds. I know you've seen them all day. We have streamers, fans, supporters, all kinds of people who weren't anticipating coming to the courthouse today, standing behind my photographer, Matt, here, watching to see what's going to happen. We're waiting for the family to come outside. 6 of his 7 children were in court today. Again, they all spoke. They leaned on one another. Many of them broke down crying, saying, my father is still my hero. They all mentioned they had seen a transformation, a change in their father, noting that he has now been sober. During court, when Sean Combs spoke, when his attorneys spoke, they mentioned his substance abuse. The judge said he did factor all of that into the sentencing. He also talked about Sean Combs' father, who was murdered when he was just a toddler. All of those things. The judge said he was listening. We've been here since 10 a.m. listening to 5 of his attorneys speaking. We heard Sean Combs. We heard his children. We also heard a man who runs a reentry program, because they talked a lot about what Sean Combs has done over at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he's being held. He teaches a course there, and other inmates wrote letters of support saying he's given them some hope. He's really been there helping educate them. And the judge said, I hope you continue this, you know, with educating incarcerated individuals. And Sean Combs turned to each of his children, thanked them, and he said, he cried out to his mom and said, you taught me better. He apologized to Cassie Ventura. He apologized to her parents. Remember, her mother testified at trial here. And he also apologized to Jane. Again, that's a former girlfriend who testified under a pseudonym. It's also worth noting that a former employee who testified at trial for the prosecution, she wanted to be here today. She wanted to speak. She was allowed to speak for 5 minutes, but prosecutors pointed out because of a letter the defense submitted, she was too scared. She didn't come here. She didn't end up speaking, but the judge, of course, had her impact letter, and he also quoted from that as well when he handed down his sentence. So again, you can see a big crowd behind me. We're waiting for the family to come outside. If we hear anything from attorneys or family members, we will certainly bring that to you. Jessica, Dick?
Well, Alice, before we let you go, I have 2 questions for you. When the judge handed down that sentence, which did fall below the guidelines, what was Combs's reaction? And then what was his reaction as he heard his children so emotionally pleading with the judge to show their father some leniency?
So I'll start with the children. He was leaning in his chair. He had his head in his hands, and it appeared that he might have been sobbing or crying when his children were speaking. And also when that video, that edited 15-minute video that they played that showcased his life and his children, he was emotional during that. However, when the judge imposed sentencing, he had no reaction. For the most part, he was sitting. He had his hands on his lap. We didn't really see much of a reaction from anybody in the courtroom. Remember, court officers do tell people before this happens to keep decorum, no outbursts or anything like that. So, again, no visible reaction.
Steps in this case, we know there's going to be an appeal, so that could take some time, though, right?
That's right. His attorneys have not yet exited court. We wanted to ask them about that. You know, normally when people are appealing, they don't usually tend to take accountability and apologize. So we're going to see what they have to say about that, because again, today in court, he was saying, I take full accountability for these Mann Act violations. He also thanked the jury for the not guilty on the RICO, the sex trafficking, but he did acknowledge multiple times the Mann Act violations when he was in court today. I'm just hearing some shouting, so I'm just checking. But again, nobody has yet exited court. So we're going to wait to see what his attorneys say in terms of an appeal. He can appeal the sentencing now that it has happened.
Alice Gaynor outside federal court in Lower Manhattan. Alice, great work. Thank you so much.
And do stay with us for continuing coverage of the sentencing of Sean Diddy Combs. He will serve 4 years and 2 months in prison. For more on what's next and a look back at our previous reporting, head over to CBSNewYork.com.